Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Coming up on Another View, African Americans and the arts. When was the last time you attended a classical concert, spent some time at a museum, or enjoyed a play? Was it a mainstream event or a program specifically targeted to African Americans? Just how involved is the Black community when it comes to the arts? Our guest today has some thoughts on the subject, and I'm sure you do also. We want to hear from you at 440-2665. Let's talk about cultural arts and the African American community right after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Welcome to Another View. It's ironic that today, when we're talking about the arts, we just find out that the blues, R&B, and jazz singer Etta James, you hear the music in the background, passed away this morning. She died early today at the hospital in California from complications from leukemia. Her husband and her two sons were by her side. You know her from her great hits. She was an incredibly talented woman. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993, the Blues Hall of Fame in 2001, the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999 and 2008. In 2003, she received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. She was awarded 6 Grammys and 17 Blues Music Awards and was named number 22 on Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Singers of All Times. Etta James passed away this morning at age 73.
To press my cheek to a thrill of life.
So as I said, today we're talking about the arts. And, you know, ideas for show topics for Another View come from all kinds of places. And honestly, today's topic came from a discussion that I had with some colleagues about an interview I had the privilege of conducting at the Muscarelle Museum at the College of William and Mary a few weeks ago. Now, you're going to hear part of that interview later in the show. But the discussion was about whether or not the Another View audience would appreciate an interview about Impressionist art. And that made me think about my experience as a board member for the Hermitage Museum and the Virginia Stage Company, and how oftentimes at events there are very few African Americans in attendance unless the subject is targeted specifically to the Black community. So I decided to put together a panel of experts to talk about how we use the arts. Please welcome Joan Rhodes-Copeland, the newly appointed director of the Cultural Alliance of Greater Hampton Roads. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Barbara. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for joining me today. Gail Easley, the director of the Crispus Attucks Cultural Center. Hi, Gail.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad you're here. And Michelle Gilliam, who is director of the Ella Fitzgerald Theater and Events with the Downing Gross Cultural Arts Center in Newport News.
Good
Hi,
to
Michelle.
see you again. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Glad you all are here today. So we had this big discussion about, you know, would African Americans want to hear an interview about Impressionist art? And it just kind of struck me that it would even be necessary for us to have that type of a conversation. But when you think about the mainstream arts, you don't a lot of times see a lot of African American participation. Michelle, do you find that to be the case? I know you've also had experience at the Ferguson as well as Downing Gross.
I think that it all goes back to your exposure. And so growing up, I was always exposed to the arts, being a military brat, had a lot of opportunities to go see shows. And it didn't dawn on me until I was in an environment where the community immediately around the Downing Gross Cultural Arts Center hadn't been exposed to every type of arts, that I realized the programming at first to get them to come through the doors needed to be things that they felt comfortable with and things that appealed to them. And what at the Ferguson Center, because that's a much larger venue, its mission is completely different. When I was at Christopher Newport University, that was something that was to appeal to the entire East Coast. It's a very different mindset in the programming.
But Joan, now you're the Cultural Alliance is made up of groups that appeal to all types of groups, all types of races, all types of people. So do you find that there's a lot of cross attendance?
I find that there is some cross attendance in some areas and in some of the larger venues. As Michelle was saying, when I moved back here in 1990 and started attending many of the events, there was not a large African American audience. Many times at the symphony there'd be maybe 10 people or less. But I'm finding that I think through exposure and through the efforts of many of the arts organizations that are a part of the Alliance and that are not a part of the Alliance, but just arts organization in general are bringing in more people. I think the effort to educate and go into the high schools and get some of the younger kids to become more aware of the arts, all the arts, the music, the classical, the jazz, the dance, and so forth. And I think that awareness is bringing in more of our people to the audiences, to the different venues.
Now, but Gail, the Crispus Attucks Cultural Arts Center has a very specific mission, and you work a lot with African American youth, exposing them to the arts. But my question to you is, do you find that the opposite happens then, that you may have a large African American audience and maybe not so large a Caucasian audience?
You know, it's interesting. While I'm involved with the arts education programs at the Attucks, I do occasionally attend the shows, and we recently had a tribute to Clarence Clemens in January, and the audience was overwhelmingly white. And he was a very famous saxophonist with the E Street Band. He played alongside Bruce Springsteen for many of his years, and so we had a very specific audience for that particular show. However, on the flip side, when the Cultural Center presented our first Attucks Nutcracker with a twist, and it was definitely designed to be more culturally specific, we did have an overwhelmingly larger number of African Americans that attended that show.
Mm-hmm. Can I make a comment on that?
Sure, absolutely.
One of the things that I think the Attucks did with that show that was fascinating was reaching out into all of the community groups and all of the community areas, including the Hampton area, and bringing in people from that. And that brought a huge amount of people to the Attucks that probably had never been there or had not been exposed to the Nutcracker.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And in addition to that, we intermixed the European foundation with the Tchaikovsky music,
yes,
but we added a twist to it. We created a jazz. We had jazz versions of the various music that appeared in the traditional Nutcracker. Mm-hmm. We introduced urban style dancing to traditional music that had more of a hip hop beat. So even though our audience was more African American, we certainly had whites in the audience that totally loved the show and plan to come back next year.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call. I really would love to hear from patrons of the arts, be you African American or not, to talk about why you go and how you think we can bring more of a diversity to the arts, particularly the fine arts in Hampton Roads. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Joan, talk to us about the Cultural Alliance and what it's all about.
The Cultural Alliance is the organization that is the alliance of all of the arts groups in the area. We call ourselves the unifying voice for the arts and culture of Hampton Roads. And we have a mission, to make it very simple, is we educate, and we do that by offering workshops for arts groups and individuals who are in the arts. And we have forums. The arts commissioners get together and they talk about the issues that they're dealing with. We also communicate by e-newsletters. We have a website that arts organizations can put their information on so that people will know what's going on in the area. And we advocate right now they're up in Richmond, the delegates, and we're going to be keeping an eye on what's happening in the arts and be sending letters and being up there talking with them to make sure that the funding for all the arts organizations remain the same. We can help smaller arts organizations because we can consult with them and offer them experts and expertise to help them grow their organizations.
Do your organizations talk about how to diversify their audiences?
Yes, we do. We do that, and we work real hard with our board to try to get our board diversified. We try to make sure that when we do workshops, we bring in people that represent all of the different groups that we are trying to reach.
What about you, Michelle? First of all, tell us a little bit about Down and Gross.
The Down and Gross Cultural Arts Center is a cultural arts center in the southeast community of Newport News. It was originally, it has an interesting history. It was originally the all-white high school from 1917. So right there you already have the two sides. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our older patrons remember not being able to go
into the building.
And so that's 1917, and you come to the late 1960s, early 70s, when integration was on the forefront. They're finally able to come to school there, and then another 5 years and the building's closed, and it became other things for the city of Newport News. Finally, in 2008, it opens as a cultural arts center, and you're going out to ask the people who historically had not been allowed to come through the doors to come see programming there. And it's an interesting problem you have. It's not the same as Attucks, where it has a history of welcoming and opening their arms to a group of people.
Mm-hmm. Gail, how significant is the history of the Attucks? And you might want to tell a little bit about that for those who I can't imagine wouldn't know, but but there may be people who are not familiar with the Attucks Theater.
Well, the Attucks was built in 1919, and it served the cultural and education as well as social needs for the African American community, because during that time we could not seek services outside our own neighborhoods. And so it was definitely a hub for cultural enrichment and entertainment. Some of the artists that came through were Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, just to name a couple.
Wow.
And just the opposite, as Michelle mentioned, that it served the needs of the community through segregation. And once segregation hit, then there was flight out of the neighborhood. And hence the Attucks changed ownership several times, and unfortunately it closed its doors in 1950 and sat dark for 50 years. The reconstruction took place in 2000. We reopened our doors in 2004. We've been operating as a entertainment venue where people can not only come to see great concerts, but we also have a year-round cultural center through the Attucks Theater, Crispus Attucks Cultural Center. And we serve about 700 children annually, particularly those underserved in the immediate communities. We've also reached out to the Peninsula. We've reached out to Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake. Any child who has an interest in the arts has a place. And we have found our success in presenting shows such as Nutcracker or the Mid-Atlantic Black Film Festival, that folks want to be participants, not just spectators. So when you give them the opportunity to develop these skills, to nurture the skills, they have a chance to be a stakeholder into the shape of how these programs are done and presented. But
let me ask you a question, and I'm asking this of all of you. So if I go to the Nutcracker, with the Attucks twist to it, and I'm not a regular patron of the arts, does that then give me the entree or make me feel more comfortable to then go to the Chrysler and not the Chrysler, but to Chrysler Hall maybe to see a more mainstream production, or to go to the symphony or something like that? Or is it because it does focus on the African American community that I may feel more comfortable? I know I'm speaking in generalities, but I'm trying to get to a sense of, do we always have to have the African American focus in order for people to be interested, or can they become more interested in what some categorize as the European mainstream?
I think that the exposure has to be there in some form. But if you look at the history of the African American history and African American, in the arts, a part of segregation was programming. You made shows that the African American community weren't interested in, and you made the tickets be a price that they couldn't pay. So even after laws allowed you to come through the doors, you still couldn't come through the doors because they were putting on shows that if you look down, you wouldn't understand, you wouldn't
connect
choose,
with at all.
Or they'd put a $100 ticket, and you're a single mother of 5. You're not going to take $100 and go to a show. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we've grown and our communities become more diverse, and arts organizations need to realize that now the percentage of African Americans in the community is a much larger percentage. And if you don't have programming that brings them through the doors, you're not going to have patrons, because if you're at 60% in Newport News of youth or 55% African Americans in the school system now, 10 years from now, who are your patrons of the arts? You have to do something in the programming that gets them exposed and gets them through the door, whether or not it's an African American play or a play in general. The arts in general are going to be in trouble if the patrons stop coming through the door.
Gotcha.
Barbara, I also represent another group from the Chrysler Museum, and I think what the Chrysler did is exactly what Michelle was talking about. As you know, it's one of the national treasures in the country. They set up an affiliate group called the Friends of African American Art, and this group started in 2002. And part of our mission is to educate, and we do workshops, and we have road trips so that we take people to the different museums in the different areas, and we support financially as well as by bringing in members to the exhibits of the Chrysler. And I think the Chrysler looked around and said, we need to expand our audience. And 2 years ago, they stopped charging fees, so that anyone that walks through the door, there's no reason they can't go there to see whatever the artwork is that they are sponsoring. And we have this exhibit coming up, 30 Americans, which will open in March. And the Chrysler is taking a leap here. The entire museum will be filled with artwork by young African American artists who show art from the 2000, this century. We're not looking at the Bearderns and the traditional. We're looking at the new, edgy art by young artists who are showing hip hop pictures and art,
and it's called
sports.
30 Americans?
It's called 30 Americans. It's the collection of the Riddell family, and they're out of Florida. And so I think that what they've done is they formed a community committee of different groups to come in and say, tell us how you'd like to see the opening night done, and what kind of programming would you want, so that we can get people involved. And of course, we all know.
You made a statement. Excuse me for interrupting you, Joan, but I'm curious about this, because you just made the statement of that they're taking a leap. Now, is it a leap because they're African American artists, or is it a leap because the entire museum will be showcasing this one thing, or is it a leap because it's going away from the traditional? What's the leap?
The leap is that they're using the entire museum for the exhibit, because we have had other exhibits, Gordon Parks and the quilts, and they usually will use one of the museum areas, but this one will include all of the areas of the museum, and
so it'll be a total offering.
Yes, it will be a total offering.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Pamela joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Pamela. You're in the air.
Hi. Thank you so much for having this show today. I've been wanting something like this because I was just talking to my son, who's 15, and I was explaining to him how when we were kids, my mom exposed us to the arts immediately right off the bat by having us do plays. And it started out as being particularly African-American plays, but then it morphed from that into West Side Story and other plays, and then again with the art and art shows. And so I was able to, because I got the knowledge from my mom when I was a kid, I could explain to him the difference between the different styles, between Manet and Monet, and the different styles of architecture and things like that. And then from there, she got us involved into a community center where plays were on by the kids in the community. So we were able to take that, what we learned from her, and then directly apply it. I don't see anything like that out here anymore, because my son has a very artistic streak, and it's like, okay, well, there's really not a whole lot to do with it.
You know what, Pamela? I see Gail is sitting here shaking her head from the Attucks Theater, and I think she has a response for you. Go ahead, Gail.
Pamela, we would love to see you and your son come to the Attucks Theater and the Crispus Attucks Cultural Center, because there's definitely a place for him there. Part of our mission is to engage young people in the arts as a way to develop the skills they need to be successful in work, at home, and in school. We've got an outstanding creative writing program, which our students will not only write the script, they will develop the script under the guidance of an instructor and then perform their work on stage. So not only is there the chance to have an academic reinforcement there, but there are exhibition opportunities as well as performing opportunities year-round. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Pamela, thanks so much for giving us a call. We really appreciate that. Did you want to add something, Joan?
Add to the fact that there are many communities that have community centers. I think Titustown has an arts center, in the Hampton area, Lambert's Point. There are many arts centers that are locally around that you can take your kids to, along with mainstream places like the D Art Center.
Mm-hmm. And at the Down and Gross Cultural Arts Center,
right.
The main mission is the youth and building community through the arts and giving them constructive choices for expression.
440-2665, 1-800-940-2240. Leslie joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Leslie, you're on the air.
Oh, praise God. How you doing? Good afternoon, ladies. How's everybody?
We're doing just great.
That's good. I always enjoy you, and I got a big blessing. I'm glad that the person before myself brought up theater, and it was nice to hear about the Attucks again. Now, having said that, a few years ago, I wrote my master's thesis at one of our better universities. It was a study of strategies and techniques to enhance positive attitudes towards theater on the part of the leadership of the black community. There are things being done. And what I would like to suggest, because I have a whole list of things that I gathered during my thesis, is that if we can kind of get those families involved and have them look at, as opposed to Hollywood, Broadway, entertainment aspect of theater. When it comes to theater, the performing arts, if we would think about the benefits of cultivating excellent communication skills, socialization skills, these are the fringe things that a lot of times, oftentimes, parents miss. And that's the only point I wanted to make, and I'm really glad about what's happening at the Attucks.
Thank you so much for your call, Leslie. We appreciate that. Gail, you want to respond?
Thank you, Leslie. Absolutely. I'm totally in agreement with you on that. And again, to reiterate, the opportunities that we have there is not only to be a spectator and an audience member in the seat, but to be an active participant in the shape of the activities that take place there. So again, we welcome your voice. We welcome your input to the success of the Attucks Theater with our programming.
You know, you bring up a really good point, because as I said, I do serve on the board for the Hermitage and also for the Virginia Stage Company and other boards that I work on. And I am constantly asked, you know, how do we reach out to the black community? How do we get more African Americans interested in being on our boards and in setting policy and so forth? Joan, what would you say to the African American audience in terms of thinking about this as a way to reach out and to help the community?
I would say that we look at the larger organizations, the fraternities, the sororities, the women's organizations, and I think that in those groups there are people who can give us great board material that can bring skills to the various boards that will help them understand the need for diversity. But I think that if we can get these groups to work with the different centers and bring kids to these events and sponsor buses, because the schools don't have the funds for that, maybe to bring students in. I think that we just need to get everybody involved in this educational exposure process. Churches as well.
A lot of the sororities actually do have arts committees now within their organizations. I participated in an afternoon of the arts with the Deltas, and it was wonderful. And 100 Black Men, they have done a number of things at the Down and Gross Cultural Arts Center to support receptions and T-shirts and activities for the youth. And so I think the word is actually getting out there. I think there needs to be an understanding from the organization that these African American leaders can be great board members. Right. Just simply they are.
Right. And I agree with you, because the the chapters of the various groups on this side of the water are doing the same thing. I just think that more can be done.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Are you a regular patron of the arts? And if you are, call us and let us know what you think about whether or not our audiences are diverse enough. Yvonne joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Yvonne. Thanks for holding.
Hi, ladies. This is Yvonne, and I think everybody that's on the panel, you started to answer some of my questions since I've been on hold, which is participating in the arts and supporting the arts is usually cost prohibitive. And the question is, in addition to what Gail and Joan have been talking about, is what else can be done? As a former New Yorker where we had things for free, Shakespeare in the Park, you could get exposed to the arts just because it was there and available. And I'd like to hear more about what we can do here in the Hampton Roads area. Thank you for my call.
Thank you so much for calling, Yvonne. Who wants to take that one on first? What else can we do? Now, Michelle, you have some other things going on at Downing Groves. You said the play that was currently there this past weekend was free.
Yeah, we have a lot of free programming so that the community can come through the doors. One of the things that we've done at Downing Groves is partner with the schools because the arts seem to be dwindling or the art opportunities are dwindling in the school system. And when budgets cut, it seems like the arts are the first to go. So we've been a field trip location for several plays, from theater for, all the traveling troops, and bringing the kids and exposing them actually to the arts at that age. That's the age that you have to get them through the door so that they value the arts as an adult.
But you talk a lot about the kids, and we've said that several times, but there's a whole group of people who are 20 to and beyond that aren't participating, and they're the ones with the money. So how do we get them in the door also?
And what's happening through the different arts organizations is they are setting up affiliate groups of this millennium generation, because that is the generation that you're talking about, because most of the audiences are graying. And so what's
That was very politically correct.
so they I think I know Virginia Stage has one. I know the Chrysler, and I know many of the organizations are working with that group of people. And there's a huge group I call Art Daily. They get the arts out to that group, and they're bringing them into the major organizations. I think the other thing is that the pricing. Some of the organizations have senior pricing, military pricing, college pricing, so that because they know that those fees are high. And I think also many of them are doing premieres and previews prior to the event to bring in some people so that they can. One of the volunteers that works here at WHRO said she saw the preview for The King and I, and it only cost her $10. And so, that they're trying to do something. And I go back again to the groups. Let's get more of these larger groups to sponsor and help pay the price so that these kids and adults can get to these activities.
There's also an increase in choices when you think about it. There used to be only one place to go see a play or two, and now they're everywhere. So your choice for entertainment that evening, it's all over the place, whether, you want to get the most for your dollar, so you want to be able to eat and maybe hear the music at the same time. And so all of that plays into a budget of a young person.
If you're just joining us, we are talking about African Americans and the arts. And my guests today are Joan Rhodes-Copeland, the newly appointed director of the Cultural Alliance of Greater Hampton Roads, and also with the Friends of the Arts at the Crispus Museum. Did I say that right? Okay. And also Ms. Gail Easley, who is with the Crispus Attucks Cultural Center, and Michelle Gilliam, director of the Ella Fitzgerald Theater and Events with the Downing Groves Cultural Arts Center in Newport News. Let's see. I think Rhonda joins us on line 4. It's Rhonda?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say I'm probably as mainstream as you get, and white middle class America, and live here in Norfolk. And I really think that the onus of including other people, that shouldn't be solely on the African American community to whether or not they're going to join the mainstream. I think that the mainstream really needs to be the first to initiate change by bringing cultural diversity to their traditional programming. I love Mozart and Beethoven, but gosh, how many times are you going to go hear it. I want to hear things from different cultures and be exposed to different costumes and dress and music. And I think that these very traditional organizations like the Stage Company and the opera and the symphony really need to shake it up a little bit. So it's a small world now.
Rhonda, let me ask you then, if one of those organizations has an event that is geared, for example, the Stage Company now is doing Black Pearl Sings. Do you go if it's a play or a concert or something that is targeted to the African American community?
Well, I do attend the Discovery series at the Attucks, the blues series, especially. But things like Black Pearl Sings and Porgy and Bess, to me, those are just as staid and old as the Mozart and Wagner and traditional Nutcracker and things like that. I want to see something new. I want to see something
interesting. She should have gone to the Nutcracker at the Attucks.
That would have been a good one. She would have enjoyed that.
Fantastic.
Well, we really appreciate your call. Thanks so much for calling.
Thank you. It's a great program.
Go ahead.
Harrison
Thank you.
Opera House had Aida, which had a very large African American audience there. Also.
Okay, we've got a lot of people on the phone, so let's talk to Edwin in Portsmouth. Hi, Edwin. You're on the air.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you all for having the show. And I'm glad you're all there because I want to talk from a patron standpoint. I was a promoter and a young entrepreneur in New Jersey some years ago, and one of the things that I'd like to say in order to get more of our youth into the programs and into the programming is not only the content of the programming, but if we can remember grassroots and street promotions. Getting the word out to us right where we are, communicating it to us. And I know that's harder than it sounds, but flyers on the poles and flyers on the billboard in our communities everywhere. And I know that funding, a lot of times dictates how we market. But as a young entrepreneur, I had learned how to promote on shoestring budgets, some black and white flyers, and friends getting people out there putting up flyers. And another thing is youth council. Actually having the youth have a youth council for your organization and have the youth actually create the ideas, the ways to market the programming out there and bring the music and bring the arts to us so we can get exposed. And once we're exposed, and if you're anything like me, once I heard jazz on a radio station, I was hooked as a young teenager. And after that, it just snowballed. I started hearing more jazz. I started realizing what was out there for young people to get involved in the arts. And I took it from there and it inspired me so much. I started my own organization. And so just wanted to put that word out there, grassroots marketing.
Thank you, Edwin. We appreciate that. Thanks for the call. Michelle, you want to respond?
Yeah, actually, we have found our executive director is Kay Sumner at the Downing Gross Cultural Arts Center, and her approach has been any and everything because who's reading a paper might not be the person that you're actually advertising to, or even the billboard on the street. They might not have the transportation to see the billboard on 664 or even the flyers. So we've done absolutely everything, and you'll still have the patrons that come through the door and say they didn't hear anything about it, and you're just like, I don't know what else to do.
I see you shaking your head here.
That is the $1 million question. If we could put that in a bottle and sell it, we all can just totally retire right now, because that's the one thing that we face too at the Attucks Theater. We have found ourselves doing more social networking, promoting electronically via Twitter, via Facebook, sending out constant contact, email blast, and of course that's a very affordable, little or no cost. When we do that, we do the flyers, we do that grassroots effort. Word of mouth definitely speaks volumes.
Sometimes that's bigger than in any of the other things that you do.
Oh, for sure. It's the word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think for the Alliance, one of the things that we do, and we do the constant contact email blasting too, but we also getting our website renovated so that we can get everybody's information on there, and hopefully people will get on it. But social media, we do have a workshop coming up February 4 at the Peninsula Fine Arts Center from 10:30 to 12:30. Nominal cost $15 if you're not a member, 10 if you are. And this is an opportunity, part of our training, for groups to figure out how to do the grassroots marketing, how to do e-marketing, how to get out there and let people know what your organization is doing, because that is a problem.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Leanne joins us from Suffolk. Hi, Leanne.
Hi. I've just moved from Utah to the Hampton Roads area just 3.5 years ago, and I've been very impressed with the variety that is available in Hampton Roads. I've had kids go to Broadway, to Wicked, and we've had kids go to punk rock bands and all sorts of different things. But I think that the idea of being able to have matinees or come see the dress rehearsal on the cheap would be really helpful for your 19 to 25 demographic.
Okay.
But the thing that has really impacted my family is that when my husband was in 8th grade, his literature teacher went over the opera Madame Butterfly, and they went over the story, and they talked about what was going to happen, and they got a grant to be able to take the class to Madame Butterfly. And because of that, he is exposed to opera, and we love opera.
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard it before. We went to Mikado on our own dime when we were poor college students because of his introduction in 8th grade.
Okay, thanks for the call, Leanne. Leanne brings up the point again about exposure and how you can't learn or know about it if you can't be exposed to it. Myra joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Myra.
Yes, I'm a senior citizen, and I have been interested in seeing the Attucks Theater since it was renovated. And I've passed by there about 6 times in the last year and observed what good parking they have.
Thank you.
And I would love to go to something on a Sunday afternoon because I don't go out in the evening, especially to Norfolk anymore. And I'd be very interested in some sort of production that would be advertised as a matinee on a Sunday afternoon.
Well, Myra, since you've got the person here right now, we're going to answer your question. Gail, do you have something for Myra?
Myra, I would like to invite you to the Attucks Theater Honors on February the 12th between 3 and 5, which is a Sunday afternoon. This is going to be a wonderful tribute celebrating women who have shaped the cultural life of Hampton Roads. And some of the women that will be honored are Geraldine Boone from Norfolk State University. We have Senator Yvonne Miller, Brenda Andrews, the owner and publisher of the New Journaling Guide, Margie Day Walker, Joyce Tasby, Inez Howard, and Maisel. So this would be an awesome time for you to be able to come over to the Attucks, enjoy a beautifully renovated historic venue with us.
Thank you so much for the call, Myra. We appreciate it. John joins us from Norfolk. Hi, John.
I wanted to mention in regard to the fine arts that we are lucky to have a world-class collection of African-American art at Hampton University, and we have a very good collection at Norfolk State University. The collections are changing frequently, but some of the main collection is just phenomenal. You can't go everywhere and see John White and Elizabeth Catlett and many of those other people. So I want to put a word in for those two organizations.
Thanks, John, for that call. Joan, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I can respond to that. He's right. The Hampton University Museum is awesome, and it does have a great collection. And Norfolk State has an African art collection that is in their archives exhibit and is historical and used by many organizations for looking up history of Africa and its history. So, yes, they are available, and you can get to those during the day. I think the other thing that we talked about is getting the matinees. All of the arts groups have Sunday afternoon matinees, and sometimes they have late Saturday afternoon and Saturday afternoons, and they do that because of seniors. And I think the Sandler now has matinees on other days of the week, like Thursday and Friday, so that they can get that audience in there.
And one of the things that Downing Gross is doing is making sure as soon as the kids are out of school, activity for youth are happening at the center. Wednesday, City of Newport News, the elementary school kids get out early release, so programming begins early. And then the second Friday of every month, we do a movie and pizza night free for the kids. So, all 276 seats are filled with kids coming to see a movie that they usually couldn't do. And so finding ways to open the doors and making it inclusive for the kids is really important.
Gail?
Yeah, and I also wanted to share with you that we did a screening at Downing Gross a couple of years ago with our Behind the Lens film students. These are high school students that incorporate writing and math and science with filmmaking, and it's a beautiful venue. It took place on a Saturday afternoon. So thank you for that. And it was a great opportunity for us to have that partnership between two cultural organizations.
And in that moment, it's a partnership, but it's also exposing kids to. They had a screening of something they did on Ella Fitzgerald's stage. I mean, when do you get to do something like that? And that's really important. And that's going to be a memory, just like the lady who mentioned her son or her husband.
Oh, her husband.
They're going to remember that, and that's going to be the next generation of kids being exposed to the arts because of what their mom and dad did.
Okay, we got less than 2 minutes, so I want to give each one of you an opportunity just to encourage people, all people, to participate in the arts. Joan?
I would like to do that, but I do need to talk about the fundraiser that the Friends of African American Art is sponsoring.
Okay, you got 10 seconds.
And it's called the Q Up, and it's March 30th, and everybody attends, all nationalities, all groups, all ages. And please call the Chrysler or the Friends of African American Art if you'd like more information.
Okay, thank you. That's Joan Rhodes-Copeland, who is the director of the Cultural Alliance of Greater Hampton Roads.
Right.
Thanks so much, Joan, for being with us. Gail?
Well, the Attucks Theater seeks to inspire and welcome every cultural and ethnic identity in American life. We're going to kick off our Black History Month with The Loving Story, presented by Cox and HBO. We hope to see you on February 9th. It's a documentary about an interracial marriage of Mildred and Richard that was declared illegal in 1958.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Gail Easley, the director of the Crispus Attucks Cultural Center. Thank you so much for being with us. And Michelle, you got about 10 seconds.
Every day we have programming going on for the youth. I wanted to get that out there because kids can come in at any time and do art, drama, music, and dance. On February 2nd, we're having a Nat Turner story. It's a one-man show by Michael Lamel. You should definitely come to see it. It's at 7 o'clock, February 2nd, free to the community. And it's not a play that just for the African-American community. It's an understanding of a story of this man's trial.
Okay. And that is Michelle Gilliam, director of the Ella Fitzgerald Theater and Events with the Downing Gross Cultural Arts Center in Newport News. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. And as I promised you, when we come back, an interview about the Impressionist art. We'll be right back.
Are you warm? Are you real? Mona Lisa? Are just a cold and lonely, lovely work of art.
Welcome back, everyone. Today is all about the arts on Another View, and our next interview is a bit different from our usual fare. It's all about Impressionist art and the wonderful exhibit at the Muscarelle Museum on the campus of the College of William and Mary. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with two art experts, Dr. John T. Spike, who is a distinguished scholar in residence at the College of William and Mary, and Museum Director Dr. Aaron DeGroft, as they talked about Seeing Colors, Secrets of Impressionists. This amazing exhibit features more than 40 original works by leading Impressionist artists. Take a listen now as Dr. DeGroft explains why Seeing Colors is such a critical exhibit for the Muscarelle.
The Muscarelle is relatively young. It's not even 30 years old in its existence, and it's had a very fortunate history. As you know, a few years ago, however, there was a drop-off and the budget was cut by 90% and the museum almost failed. So given the fact that literally 6 years later, we're hosting exhibitions from the Uffizi or from the Medici collections or Dutch Old Masters from Dulwich in London, which is called the best small museum in all of Europe, or exhibitions of the great artist Michelangelo, that's something to be said. The Seeing Colors, The Secrets of the Impressionists is probably the most important exhibition to come to the museum in its young history. In many ways, you could talk shamelessly about the value of the works of art, but we won't do that. But everyone has an affinity for the Impressionists, and they were beautiful pictures. They are beautiful pictures that most people embrace as such. It's the most commonly and widely known and understood sort of Western art form. If you went out to ask the guy on the street to name 5 artists, they'd probably say Monet, Manet, Renoir, Degas, and we have them all here today.
That's fantastic. So take us behind the scenes a little bit. What does it take to bring an exhibit like this to the Muscarelle?
Well, with all modesty, exhibition like this would not come to the Muscarelle in any given day. This is a series of relationships for which we're very, very proud. The director of the High Museum in Atlanta called literally at the last minute a number of months ago and said that he had a gap in his schedule for his traveling exhibition of Impressionist pictures and would we be interested. And then he started to apologize and that, well, it's only in a couple of months, it has to open in October, and you have to have it over the holidays, which, you know, can be a problem. And I said, well, people come to Williamsburg in the holidays. Our attendance actually goes up. The fact that he knew we were nimble and would take the permanent collection down to fit something like this in is also a great opportunity. But my fallback card was, you know, all the other museums that have this show are 10 times our size, meaning they have 10 times the money. Mm-hmm. And finally, it's the philosophy of a hotel room. If you don't sell it, you get nothing. If you sell it even for a little bit, you get something. So his options were have it come here or bring it home and park it. And so for us, this was a huge, huge opportunity for our students and our community to have an iconic Claude Monet here, to have works by the most famous of the Impressionists and post-Impressionist artists, and then to have an American Impression section, let alone the works on paper, which are downstairs. So we made this really a twofer exhibition to fall exactly when would be best for us, and maybe it's just luck.
And also, according to John, at least, you and your relationships really pulled this whole thing together.
Well, it was very nice. I appreciate that. I think a lot of people work very hard around here, but in this particular case, the director of the High Museum and I had successfully accomplished an issue that he had with some personnel and some recommendations. So he held us in a soft spot and called us first when we found out, which I appreciate. We were down there a few weeks ago with the director of the Museum of Modern Art, Glenn Lowry, who was the first director of this museum.
Mm. So this museum has a lot of history then. And what is the stature of this museum within the museum world? Are you rising?
We've risen immensely. I mean, okay. We've increased the attendance here by over 60,000 people a year. We've added over 700 works to the collection. We've tripled the membership, quadrupled the programs. We've produced 7 books on exhibitions like Michelangelo. I think in Virginia, and this will get me in trouble, I think we're the second best art museum in Virginia.
You want to say who the first is?
At the Virginia Museum. Virginia Museum is ranked 10th in the country.
Okay, that's fantastic. Don't you guys think you should get a round of applause for that?
Well, thank you.
After we explored why having the exhibit here was so important, our experts then delved into the secrets about the Impressionists, starting with Dr. John T. Spike.
In the 1820s, it is realized for the first time that no color is ever the same twice. Color is always different according to the colors that are next to it. I'm glad we had this chance to share this, Barbara.
I'm fascinated because now that's going to make me look at the painting differently.
These paintings look different in this large room of French paintings because they're on a yellow wall, and the American paintings look different because they're on a cool green wall. And the reason we chose yellow for the French is we found in a letter written by Pizarro, there's 2 superb paintings here, in the French Gallery. He wrote to his son, who sought his advice about an exhibition he was going to have in London about the wall colors. He said, in our first show, we had white walls around which we painted a canary yellow stripe. I thought, if Pizarro thought this was right, who are we?
Well, I think it's important to note that what John is saying is that artists are using new technology. We can see it today. Michelangelo used the newest technologies he had. But this color theory, complementary color, contrasting complementary colors, these theories on optics were being used by this artist and what they were producing. And when you see these red-green combinations or blue-yellow combinations and they're illustrated in the first gallery, and you come into the room with all the pictures, both the French gallery and the American one, you see them employing these things because you learned about it in the first room. I thought it was fantastic, and most people wouldn't realize that most people think artists, didn't they always paint outside? The answer is no.
I was going to ask you about that, because what was going on culturally, though, that made them come out of the studio and go into the streets to paint?
Well, two things really, but artists always went out and made sketches. They would come back to their studios and make finished paintings. First of all, you had to hand grind the paints. You had to add the binder, whether it be oil or egg yolks or whatever, and it just wasn't conducive. But there was one simple answer to this. They put paint in tubes, and it became portable. And you can bring to mind these many films on Vincent van Gogh where he straps on his easel and his paint box and his things, and he heads out in the field. Well, this did not happen in the Renaissance. So we think today, well, geez, painting outside, they do it everywhere. But this was extremely sort of revolutionary at the time. We have a painting in the first gallery by John Singer Sargent that he painted out on the beach in the sand. And they reflect on, how difficult that is to do sometimes, but also that, you can have the material blown into your paint, which you could find examples of that. But the simple fact of making pigments portable, that was a sort of a new invention at the time. And so today we take paint in tubes as it's for granted.
The interview was conducted before an engaged audience of WHRO Leadership Circle members, followed by questions from the audience, including this question. What do we stand to lose when we don't expose art to elementary school children? Dr. Aaron DeGroff's response will really make you think.
So if you go to YouTube and pull up the TED Talks, Sir Kevin Robinson, this is something we're working on with the school system here today. They asked a group of people to think up as many possible uses of a paperclip. And if the first group studied thought of 1,500 uses of a paperclip. That same group, a number of years later, thought up 200 examples of a paperclip. And that same group, a few years later, thought up 50 uses of a paperclip. The 1,500 was considered genius status, and they were kindergartners.
Wow.
They then measured the same kids in 3rd grade and 6th grade, and this is an eye-opening thing. I think creativity and divergent thinking is what happens around a lot of art, and we need that as a left brain and right brain balance. We have art collections in the law school because the study, it balances out the academic study, with the right brain work with art. So we think we're just turning out better lawyers.
And you can see the colors exhibit for just 2 more days through January 22nd at the Muscarelle Museum on the campus of the College of William and Mary. Now, there are some other things of interest happening in the community. Tonight, Park Place United Methodist Church presents the All Clean Comedy Review. It is tonight at 7 p.m. It's time to laugh, they say. That's starring Quincy Carr, and it's free. They will take a free will offering. The Virginia Stage Company presents Frank Higgins' Black Pearl Sings. It opens tonight at the Well, and it runs through February 5th. Tickets are available at the box office. On Monday, January 23rd at 7, 2nd Calvary Baptist Church invites you to attend social justice seminar entitled Homeless, The Great American Enigma, moderated by poet and author Nached Richardson. Call the church for more information. On Thursday, January 26th in Williamsburg, the Altogether Group presents The Help Is There a Message Here? It's a lively discussion on the book. Call 256-1605 to find out more. And finally, on Saturday, the 28th, Girls with Goals Alliance is holding an opportunity to celebrate National Mentoring Month. The keynote speaker is Ashley Smith, and Lisa Godley is the MC. Call 714-4892 for more information. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. We'll see you next week for another View.